Welcome everyone, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here with me and supporting my channel as I continue on my creative journey. So what am I going to do today? Well, I've decided that I would incorporate something that I've shown you previously, and that I would also add something to that. So in a previous video, I showed you how to make this fabric. It's one of my first videos. And today I've made this piece of green fabric. So I just took all the pieces, I laid them on the backing, this fusible backing, and then as you can see, I've zigzagged them all down. So they're fused onto there. Then in another one of my videos, I showed you a collection of bird appliques that I had actually been making. Now, so I decided today I'd work on this bird. So I drew this little bird here, and then I transferred the bird to these templates. And what I've decided to do is put a little bird here, and I'm going to show you how I machine stitch this bird on. So I've gathered a few supplies here. I've decided that I'd really do contrast, and I'd do the bird in these purple colours here, and I will do the beak in that, and then I'm going to add some florals from these two pieces of fabric. So I've already drawn little bird onto here, so I'm going to cut it out. I'm using the product Heat and Bond. I really like this product. I've used it for a very long time. And at my local fabric shop, I can now buy it by the meter off the roll, which is really great. So it's basically, you remove the backing, and you can see it has this substance here, this adhesive. So you simply place it where you want it to go, and then you iron it down and it fuses to the back. So I need to have my little bird up here. I cut this into sections so that I can easily show you all the pieces as I go along. So this little bit here is the little tail bit there, and I'm just going to cut them out and then I'm going to lay them down. Hope everyone's having a great day. It's actually cooling down here I am at the moment. However, I think we're in for wet weather in the next week, so that's probably the reason it's cooling down. Okay, now I've got to be careful here, because if I see how I've separated that from that, I've separated the adhesive from the apps fabric. But if I'm just careful with it, it should be fine. Now normally I wouldn't have this trace line on it, but I just want to show you show you the pieces as I cut them out. You can of course cut out on the back here. I could have done that as well, but I'm just doing it this way today. Remember, if you're using scissors for this, there is paper on the back, and it can actually cause your scissors to become a little bit blunt, so be mindful of that. Here's part of the tail. Now this little bird pattern, once you've made that little template, you've got that template and you can use it over and over again if you like the bird. And of course you can flip it so that the bird's going in the opposite direction. Now I tried to find, when I was doing this, I tried to find some interesting pieces of fabric, which would add a little bit of interest to this little bird. I could have just gone with plain colours and then did some stitching later, but I decided I would just do this instead. So I've got one little piece. I've got that big wing. Oh, I need this little bit here. This is what this bit is. So as you can see, I've just attached the heat and bond. Now there's plenty of fabric left here to probably make another bird in another project, so it won't go to waste. Now the red here I'm going to use to make the beak. Sorry, I've got threads everywhere here this morning. So I'm going to make the beak out of this very nice red. Okay, so let's put the little bird together and then we'll do the next bit. So we've got that piece placed down. We've got a wing. We've got the tail. So I use the template to help me place this bird. Now, prior to cutting that out, you can see here that I've taken a piece of chalk. Let me go back a bit here, and I actually just drew in with my tailor's chalk. I've just drawn this branch, so I've got an idea of where my little bird wants to sit. Now the piece, I was going to tell you this too, is 25 centimeters by 24 centimeters, or 9.5 inches by 10 inches. So this block, that's the size of the block. Now the block was made, then I've decided where I want my little branch to be that my bird's going to sit on. I've taken the template and I've cut the pieces out. Now I'm going to use the template now to show you how I use it to help me put the bird back together, so I get a similar look to what I had when I had the bird. So the little wing goes there, and I'm going to tilt it a little bit because I want a little bit of a gap here. Okay, so that's the wing. Now on that wing section you can see that there's a little bit under there that I just want to get a bit of a difference colour here, so I'm going to put the wing needs to go there. So I need to put a bit more of a scoop in here, so I'm just going to eyeball this and give it a bit more of a scoop so we get that indication of the bottom. Yep, that's fine. Let's put that over there, out of the way. So we've got the beak. Now you can see that I've made these pieces a little bit larger sometimes than the actual pattern, so that way it gives me a little bit to tuck under the piece. So that beak looks rather large actually, so just check that that's sort of in the right place. Yep, that's fine. So this last little bit is the little bit here of the tail. Oops, I've already taken that off. So I might put it that way only because I don't like the way that that's been cut. Okay, we might do that again because I don't actually like the way that that's been cut. So I need a little piece to just sit here. I might just do it from here. So, okay. Again, we might just eyeball this a little bit. Now remember, this is my little bird, so it's going to be unique, and wherever I think this should go or how it should look is how it's going to end up looking. I always have quite a bit of difficulty removing this. I should have got my tweezers out. It probably would have made it a lot easier. However, we've accomplished what I set out to accomplish there. So if you see in the tail section, which I have here, you get that look where they got a little bit of the differentiation of colour there. I think that looks fine. So we've got the bird laid down here, and as I said, I have done this little I'll take my size stickers off here, put them over there somewhere so I don't forget the size. Now with the eye of the bird, I've got a couple of choices here, but I think what I'll do with the eye is I'll actually just do some hand stitching to add that on there. Now the other thing I thought I might do is I found this really fabulous, really happy little flower piece of fabric, and I thought I'd use this print to add a bit more interest to this. And I also found this lovely little piece of bright floral, which I thought I could use somewhere, especially this piece here. I thought could be added somewhere on this. So let's start with these. Again, I've ironed these onto the fusible backing, and I'm just going to cut out a few of these little flowers and place them around and see what they look like. Now I have little boxes of this fused fabric that I don't use, so I'm not throwing anything away. It's going to be used, if not for this project, it'll get used for another project. I did mention in another video that there is a newer product out, which I can't remember. If I remember the name of it, I'll place it in the bottom corner here somewhere, that actually when you take the backing off, it has a sticky residue which enables you to press these pieces down and they don't move around, which is really useful actually, but I haven't used it quite a lot. So let's have a look here. We've got these bigger flowers, we've got some smaller flowers. I might cut out a couple more. We've got a couple of different colours. We've got the smaller one here. Can't really use that one in the corner there. I might take this lot up here, I think. So I'm just going to cut around them and then place them. So once these pieces look fairly balanced, I'll go to the iron and I'll actually iron them on. And then the next step is I'm actually just going to zigzag these on. And I normally use quite a small zigzag to do that. Now when we get around here to this edge, this flower is a little bit off the edge of that piece of paper, off the printed edge of the fabric, so you just sort of cut it to make it look as flowery as you possibly can. Now I'm just trying to balance these. If it means I need to draw another piece here, so I might need to draw another stem here like that, I'll probably just draw that in and do something like that so that it looks like it's on a branch. Now these sections here, I think for this one I might just do them all by machine. So I'll probably machine these in a brown or a lighter colour, a light brown if I've got a light brown, depends on what cotton I've actually got, and then I'll go from there. So I think it needs maybe a few more flowers, maybe a few smaller flowers, I think. We'll try this little green one over here. This is cute. Now you can always add more flowers if you don't think there's enough after you've just done this first part. So maybe a flower there. 5 always looks good. I don't know if I need a large one. Probably doesn't need another large one. Now I'm thinking maybe I don't need this. I really like this flower, but I may not actually need it unless it's... I don't think it really works down there. I might just stay with these ones and cut out a few more and just see if I'm going to use them or not. That one's off the edge of the paper there, so probably not that useful for this project. That one's a little bit different. I might go in and use that one. And as I said, I always keep the leftovers from these little projects. You can use them in lots of different ways. If you're doing other little projects like this, you might be able to use the pink. And sometimes things just have to be thrown away. They can't be used in other projects. So I try to have as little waste as possible, but sometimes it's not actually achievable, so I'm not going to panic about it too much today. Because I seem to have a lot of yellow there, but that's not bad. Okay, I think for now I might just leave that there. So the next process will be to iron this all down and then go off to the sewing machine. So I don't think I'll put any leaves on this time, because I've got a bit of like foliage going on here in the background, and I just really want the bird to stand out. So I'll go and press it down, and then I'll try and set up my sewing machine and take you through the process of actually sewing these on. So I'll see you soon at the sewing machine. Okay, I didn't get any clear sewing of the bird, unfortunately, so I'm going to show you the basic process of what I'm doing. Now, I'm just sewing the little flowers on here, and I've used a small zigzag on both the bird and the flowers. So I had a 2.2 width on my sewing machine and a 0.8 length, so a very small zigzag, quite close. As you can see, it's very small because these flowers aren't very big. I used on the branches, which you can't see, but I will show you later, I used a different width to create the different thicknesses of the branch. Now there's lots of threads here you can see on the top. What I normally do is when I've finished, I just draw those all to the back of the piece and I tie them off. So that allows me to have a clear front, and then I continue working on it. Sorry if the machine is a bit loud, I'll try and subdue that sound a bit. So basically I just I use the center of the foot there, the plastic foot, I place the edge on that and I just stitch around. Now because the fabric is quite firm, the layers and the backing that I've used the iron-on interface, you can see it's quite easy for me to spin it around because I don't need to have a hoop to do this. And you can see there I don't often even backstitch because I tie off all the stitches later at the back. I'll do just one more here. Now I've chosen a pink zigzag. It's not perfect, but I'm just showing you that this is just a basic little bird, and you could take this zigzag process, like this is how I started, and I do far more complicated things now. So after I finish actually sewing on the roses or these flowers with the zigzag, I took it away for a little while because I'm very conscious of not making the video way too long. So everything's been sewn on. So then what I decided by machine with this zigzag, so then I decided to do a little bit of hand stitching. So I've done the legs, I've done a little bit the eye, a little bit of detail here, and a little bit of detail there. And then what I thought I would do is I put a little bit of detail around here. So I've just done, as I said, basic example of the things that you could do. Now I could do some clouds up here, I could do a whole lot more stitching around here, I could do a lot more stitching on the bird. I mean, that's a personal choice. I just want to show everyone a basic process for this piece. Now, as I said, this is a basic piece and a good starting point, and from this I've gone on to do much more detailed things. And I think I stated in the video where I showed a little bit, the previous part of this video where I showed you a little bit of how I actually do that on a machine, that I make these pieces now. For example, if I want to give a friend something, a gift, or sometimes I do them because I'm making these and I put them on items that would go for a sale stall, market day stall, for a charity. So I just enjoy making them, and so that's why I do them. And I learn something different every time that I do them, so that's also good. Apologies, I've lost my thread again. Now there are lots of ways that you can embellish this with stitching. I mean, I could do a whole set of flowers there and lovely little embroidery stitches, make flowers, and I could add more machine applique to this. But it just depends what I want to do at the end. In another video I'll show you a far more complicated bird, but for this video I just wanted to finish this off and just make a happy little piece. I mean, there's lots of uses for this. You could frame this, it'd be cute in a kid's room. You know, there's many possibilities as you could think about how to use this up. It would be okay. I've washed pieces like this on gentle wash and they've been fine. I mean, it's a handmade product, so it needs to be treated with a little bit more care than something that's been mass produced. So basically that's the end product. As again I said, you could do as much more stitching as you wanted to. You could do lots more fabric pieces here. Now as you can see, I was talking about the zigzag here, so I zigzagged at a wider width here, and then I did a number of zigzags over there, and then petered off to a much smaller zigzag here to give the idea, the impression of the branch that the bird is sitting on. Here it's very thin, the zigzag, and I chose this lightish grey-brown colour because that's all I actually had. So thank you again. I appreciate you being here with me today and just following me on this process of making this very basic little bird applique using machine application with a zigzag and then a little bit of decorative hand stitching around on different sections of the piece. So thank you again. Hope to see you next time. If you like the video, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave me a comment below. And have a great day, and hope to see you on the next project. Bye for now.